Chapter 20 of 7 Footprints to Satan by A. Merritt. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Ben Tucker. Chapter 20. The Broken Web. The effect of that abrupt silencing of the tumult overhead was disconcerting, to put it mildly. The 5 sharp reports had been less like pistol shots than those of a rifle. But who had been shooting, and how could so few bullets have ended such a melee as I had glimpsed?
"They're quiet. What does it mean?"
whispered Eve. "Somebody's won," I said.
"Satan? You don't think Satan?"
she breathed. Whether Considine had done for Satan, or Satan for him, I had no means of knowing. Desperately I hoped that Considine had killed him. But whether he had or had not, my betting upon the general battle was with the Keft drinkers. They swung a wicked knife, and they didn't care. If Considine had choked Satan's life out of him, the Keft slaves had in all probability sent Considine's life after Satan. I didn't tell Eve that. "Whether Satan is lost or won, his power is gone," I told her. "There's little to fear from him now."
"Not if we can get out of this blinking hole without getting scragged, there ain't," said Harry gloomily. "It's only fair to tell you I'd a lot rather be hearing that bank holiday going on up there."
"What's the matter with you?" I asked.
"It'd keep their minds off us for one thing." He looked askance at Eve. "But that ain't the whole of it."
"Will you kindly not regard me as a sensitive female, Barker?" said Eve with considerable acerbity. "Never mind considering my feelings. What do you mean?"
"All right," said Barker. "I'll tell you straight, then. I don't know where the hell we are."
I whistled. "But you knew your way here," I said.
"No," he answered. "I didn't. I took a long chance on that, Captain. I knew about that trap behind the gold throne and the room under it. It's where he stows it, and I've been there from up above. I took a chance there was another way out. I was lucky enough to find it, but how to get from here, I don't know."
"Hadn't we better get moving along somewhere?" said Eve. "We sure had," I said. "We've only got one gun. Those slaves may come piling in any minute."
"I move we take the right hand," said Harry. "We're somewhere close to Satan's private quarters. I know that. You keep the gun, Captain."
We moved along the corridor cautiously. Barker kept scanning the wall, shaking his head, and mumbling. Something had been puzzling me ever since Eve had walked forth from the dark amphitheater to take my place at the steps. It seemed as good a time as any to satisfy my curiosity. "Harry," I asked, "how did you work it so that all the prints registered only on that one side of the globe? What kept Satan from doing his double-crossing as usual from the Black Throne? He was trying hard enough. Did you get back into the temple again after we'd left?"
"I fixed it before we went, Captain," he grinned. "You saw me fussing with the machinery after we tried it out, didn't you?"
"I thought you were just readjusting it," I said.
"So I was," he grinned more broadly. "Setting it so the steps through all the contacts on the lucky side of the telltale. Setting it so his little arrangement in his chair wouldn't make no contacts at all. Took a chance, I did. Thought maybe the next temple meeting would be on account of you. Only thing I was afraid of was he'd miss the noise when he pulled the little lever. I couldn't help that. Thank God he didn't. He was too mad."
"Harry," I took the little man by the shoulders, "you've surely paid me back in full and more for whatever I did for you."
"Not now," said Barker. "Wait till we're out." He halted. "What's that?" he whispered.
There had been another sharp explosion, louder than those we heard before the silence had dropped upon the temple. It was closer, too. The floor of the corridor trembled. Quick upon it came another.
"Bombs!"
exclaimed Barker. There was a third explosion, nearer still.
"Christ! We got to get out of here!"
Barker began questing along the walls like a terrier. Suddenly he grunted and stopped.
"Got something," he said. "Quiet now. Stand close behind me while I take a look."
He pressed upon the wall. A panel slid aside, revealing one of the small lifts. He drew a long breath of relief. We crowded in.
"Down or up?"
He closed the panel on us. "What do you think?" I asked him.
"Well, the temple's on the ground floor. We're just under it. If we go down, we'll be somewhere around that slave's den. If we go up, we've got to pass the temple. If we can get by and keep on going up, well, it's hardly likely there'll be as many slaves over it as under and around it, Captain." "Up we go," said Eve decisively.
"Up it is," I said. He sent the lift upward, slowly. There was a fourth explosion, louder than any of the others. The frame of the elevator rattled. There was a sound of falling masonry.
"Getting close," said Eve. If we could break into Satan's rooms, we'd have a chance of finding that private tunnel of his. Barker stopped the lift. It's somewhere close by. It's our best bet, Captain. With any luck at all, we could come out safe on the shore.
I'll bet that by now everybody on the place knows what's going on and are somewhere around here, I said. We could lift one of those speedboats and get away.
I smell something burning,
said Eve.
Cripes!
Barker sent the lift up at the limit of its speed.
I'll say you do.
A crack had opened in the wall in front of us. Out of it had shot a jet of smoke. Suddenly Barker stopped the lift. He slid aside a panel cautiously. He peered out, then nodded to us. We stepped into a small room paved and walled with a dull black stone. On one side was a narrow door of bronze. It was plainly an antechamber. But to what? As we stood there hesitating, we heard 2 more explosions, one immediately following the other. They seemed to be upon the floor where we were. From below us came another crash as of a falling wall. The lift from which he had just emerged went smashing down. Out of the open panel poured a dense volume of smoke.
Gord, the old bloody place is on fire!
Barker jammed the panel shut and stared at us, white-faced, and suddenly I thought of Cobham. Cobham, with his gentlemanly bomb that was to blow the bottom out of the Astarte. Satan had said that he had been driven into hiding near the laboratory. Had Cobham seen his chance to escape during the rush of the Keft slaves to aid Satan? Had he found his way clear, gone straight to the laboratory, and was he now strewing in crazy vengeance the death and destruction he had garnered there? I tried the bronze door. It was unfastened. Gun ready, I slowly opened it. We were at one end of that amazing group of rooms, that shrine of beauty which Satan had created for himself, that place of magic whose spell had so wrought upon me not so long ago that I had gone forth from it half considering the giving up of Eve, the placing of my whole allegiance in Satan's hands. There was a thin veil of smoke in the silent chamber. It dimmed the tapestries, the priceless paintings, the carvings of stone and wood. We crossed its floor and looked into a larger treasure room. The smoke hung like a curtain. From behind the smoke and close came another explosion. Through the curtain stumbled Satan. At the sight of him we huddled together, the 3 of us. My mouth went dry, and I felt the sweat wet the roots of my hair. It was not with fear. It was with something more than fear. For Satan, stumbling toward us, was blind. His eyes were no longer blue, jewel-hard and jewel-bright. They were dull and gray like unpolished agates. They were dead. It was as though a flame had seared them. There was a red stain over and around them, like a crimson mask. He was cloakless. Black upon the skin of his swollen neck were the marks of strangling fingers, Concertine's. One arm hung limp. The other clasped to his breast a little statue of ivory, an Eros. Of all those things of beauty which he had schemed and robbed and slain to possess, that statue was, I think, the thing he loved the best. The thing in which he found the purest, perfect form of that spirit of beauty, which, evil as Satan was, he knew and worshipped. He stumbled on, rolling his great head from side to side like a blind beast, and as he came tears fell steadily from the sightless eyes and glistened on the heavy cheeks. Through the curtain of smoke, following him, stalked Cobham. A bag was slung over his left shoulder. It bulged, and as he emerged he dipped a hand within it. In his hand, when he drew it out, was something round, about as big as an orange, something that gleamed with a dully metallic luster. As Cobham walked, he laughed, constantly, even as Satan wept. Cobham halted.
"Satan!" he called. "Stop! Time for a rest, dear master!"
The stumbling figure lurched on, unheeding. The jeering note in Cobham's voice fled, it became menacing.
"Stop, you dog! Stop when I tell you! Do you want a bomb at your heels?"
Satan stood still, shuddering, the little statue clasped closer.
"Turn, Satan," jeered Cobham. "What, master, would you deny me the light of those eyes of yours?"
And Satan turned. Cobham saw us. The hand that held the bomb flew up.
"Walter,"
cried Eve, and leaped in front of me, arm outstretched.
"Walter, don't!"
I had not tried to shoot. To be honest, I had not thought of it. The paralysis with which the sight of Satan had touched me still held me. Eve's swift action saved us more surely than a bullet would have. Cobham's arm dropped to his side. Satan did not turn. I doubt even if he heard. He was past all except his agony and the voice of his tormentor, and that, it came to me, he obeyed only to save from destruction the thing he was clasping.
"Eve?"
Some of the madness was swept away from Cobham's face.
Who's with you? Come closer. We moved toward him. Kirkham, eh? And little Harry. Stop where you are. Put your hands up, both of you. I owe you something, Kirkham, but I don't trust you. Eve, where do you think you're going? We're trying to get away, Walter, she said gently. Come with us. Come with you? Come with you? I saw the madness fill his eyes again. I couldn't do that. There's only a part of me here, you know. The rest of me is in a room full of little mirrors. A part of me in every one of those mirrors. I couldn't go away and leave them. He paused, seemingly to consider the matter. The smoke grew thicker. Satan never moved. Disintegrated personality, that's it, said Cobham. Satan did it. But he didn't keep me there long enough. I got away. If I'd stayed a little longer, all of me would have gone into the mirrors. Into them and through them and away. As it is, said Cobham with a dreadful impersonal gravity, the experiment remains unfinished. I can't go away and leave those bits of myself behind. You see that, Eve? Careful, Eve, don't cross him, I muttered. He heard me. Shut up, you Kirkham. Eve and I will do the talking, he said viciously. We could help you, Walter, she said steadily. Come with us. I went to the temple, he interrupted her, speaking quite calmly, the shattered mind abruptly taking another path. I had my bombs with me. I distributed a few of them. I used the sleeping gas. Considine was at the bottom of the steps. His back was broken. Satan was just getting up from him. He covered his mouth and nose and ran. I caught him. A little spray across the eyes with something I was carrying. That was all. He made for here like a rat to his hole, blind as he was. The mood changed. He roared his crazy laughter. Come with you! Leave him? And what he's done to me? No, no, Eve. Not if you were all the angels in heaven. We've had a nice long walk, Satan and I, and when we go together, with all the little bits of me and his damned mirrors going too. A long, long journey. But I've arranged it so we'll have a swift start. Cobham, I said, I want to save Eve. The tunnel to the shore. Will you tell us how to find it? Or is the way to it blocked? I told you to shut up, Kirkham. He leered at me. Everybody used to obey Satan. Now Satan obeys me. Therefore, everybody obeys me. You've disobeyed me. Walk over to that wall, Kirkham. I walked to the wall. There was nothing else to do. You want to know how to get to the tunnel, he said when I had reached it and turned. Go into that anteroom. Through the right wall there. Listen to me, you Harry. He shot a malicious look at me. 6 panels left along the corridor. Through again into another passage. Go down the ramp to the end. Through it at the last panel right. That's the start of the tunnel. So much for that. Now, Kirkham, let's see whether you're going with them. Catch! He raised his arm and threw the bomb at me. It seemed to come to me slowly. I seemed to have plenty of time to think of what would happen to me if I missed it, or dropped it, or caught it too roughly. Luck was with me. I did none of the 3. All right, you go, grinned Cobham. Keep it in case you meet any of the slaves. I think I cleaned them all out in the temple. Gas bombs, Kirkham, gas bombs. They're lying up there asleep and toasting. Again he roared with laughter. Get out! He snarled suddenly. We walked back through the other room. We did not dare look into each other's faces. At the door I glanced back. Cobham was watching us. Satan had not stirred. We passed through the little door and closed it. We got out of the little antechamber as quickly as we could. It was pretty bad with the smoke and rather too much like a furnace. The first corridor was uncomfortably choky, too. The second was entirely clear. When we reached its end, Barker had a bit of trouble with the panel. Finally, it swung open like a door. Before us was not, as I had expected, the entrance to the tunnel, but a bare stone room about 20 feet square. Opposite us was a massive steel door closed with heavy bars. On each side of it was a keft drinker. They were big fellows, armed with throwing cords and knives. In addition to these, they had carbines, the first guns I had seen in the hands of the slaves. I had thrust Cobham's bomb in my pocket. For an instant, I thought of using it. Then common sense told me that it might bring the place crashing down about us. At any rate, seal the tunnel entrance. I dropped my hand on my automatic, but by that time the guards had covered us with their rifles. The only reason that they had not shot on sight, I suppose,
was that they had recognized Barker.
Hello, what's the matter with you?
Barker stepped toward them.
What are you doing here?
One of the slaves spoke, and by the faint accent and the deadened voice I thought that he had been Russian before he had become what he was.
Satan's orders,
answered Harry brusquely, and gestured to the guns.
Put 'em down.
The slave who had spoken said something to the other in that unfamiliar tongue I had heard Satan use. He nodded. They lowered their carbines, but held them in readiness.
You have his token?
asked the slave.
You got it, Captain.
Barker turned his head to me quickly, then back to the guard.
No, you haven't. I have.
I had read the message in his eyes. My hand was on the automatic. I shot from the hip at the second guard. His hand flew up to his breast, and he toppled. At the instant of the report, Barker hurled himself at the legs of the challenging slave. His feet flew from beneath him, and down he crashed. Before he could arise, I had put a bullet through his head. I felt no compunction about killing them. The Keft drinkers had never seemed to me to be human. But whether human or not, I killed far better men for much less reason during the war. Barker dropped upon the guard he had tripped and began to search him. He arose with a bunch of small keys and ran to the steel door. It could not have been more than a minute before he had the bars down and the door open. The tunnel lay before us, long, cased with stone and dimly lighted.
We've got to take it on the double.
Barker jammed the heavy valve shut.
I didn't like what he said about him and Satan going away together quick. I think he fixed it to blow up the laboratory, and there's enough stuff there to move the northeast corner of hell.
We set off at a run down the tunnel. After we had gone about 1,000 feet, we came to another wall. It closed the way, making of the passage apparently a blind alley. Barker worked feverishly at it, going over it inch by inch with nimble fingers. A block dropped suddenly, sliding downward as though in grooves. We passed through the opening and ran on. The lights blinked out. We halted in darkness. The ground quivered under our feet. The quivering was followed by a deep-toned roar like the bellow of a volcano. I threw an arm around Eve. The floor of the tunnel heaved and rocked. I heard the crash of stones falling from its roof and sides.
Gord! There goes Satan!
Barker's voice was hysterically shrill. I knew it must be so. Satan had gone. And Cobham. And all those, dead and alive in the chateau. They too were gone. And all the treasures of Satan, all the beauty that he had gathered about him, gone. Blasted and shattered in that terrific explosion. Things of beauty irreplaceable. Things of beauty for which the world must be poorer forever. Destroyed for all time. Wiped out. I had a sensation of sick emptiness. My very bones felt hollow. I felt a remorse and horror, as though I had been party to some supreme sacrilege. Eve's arms were around my neck tightly. I heard her sobbing. I thrust away the weakening thoughts and held her to me close, comforting her. The stones ceased falling. We went on, picking our way over them by the gleam of Barker's flash. The tunnel had been badly damaged. If ever I prayed then that no fall of stone or slip of earth had blocked it against us. If so, we were probably due to die like pinned-in rats. But the damage lessened as we drew further away from the center of the explosion, although now and again we heard the crashing of loosened stones behind us. We came at last to a breast of rocks, rough-hewn, a formidable barrier that closed the tunnel. It must be, we knew, its further end. Barker worked long at that, and I too, and both of us at times despairingly before we found the key to its opening. At last, when the flash was dying, a boulder sank. We breathed cool, fresh air. Close to us we heard the ripple of waves. Another minute, and we stood upon that pile of rocks where I had seen Satan looking out over the waters of the Sound. We saw the lights of the Cherub. She had come closer to shore. Her searchlight was playing upon the landing, sweeping from it along the road that led through the woods to the great house. We crept down the rocks and began to skirt the shore to the landing. At our right, the sky was glowing, pulsing. The tops of the trees stood out against the glow like the silhouettes of trees in a Japanese print. Satan's funeral pyre. We reached the pier. The searchlight picked us up. We went forward boldly. Barker dropped into a likely-looking launch that was fastened to the landing. Those on the yacht must have thought we were making ready to come to them. They held the light steady upon us. The engines of the launch started to hum. I lowered Eve into it and jumped after her. Barker threw the propeller into first speed, and then into direct drive. The launch shot forward. There was no moon. A mist was on the waters. The glow of Satan's pyre cast a red film on the sluggish waves. Barker steered for the yacht. Suddenly he swung sharply to port and away from her. We heard shouts from her decks. The mist thickened as we sped on. They dimmed the beam, and then it lost us and swept back to the pier. Barker headed the launch straight for the Connecticut shore. He gave me the wheel and went back to nurse the engines. Eve pressed close to me. I put my arm around her and drew her closer. Her head dropped upon my shoulder. My thoughts went back to the burning chateau. What was happening there? Had the great explosion and the glare of the flames brought outsiders to it as yet? Volunteer firefighters from the neighboring villages? Police? It was not likely. The place was so isolated, so difficult of access. But on the morrow, surely they would come. What would they find? What would be their reception? How many had escaped from the chateau? And those who had been trapped in Satan's house? Those who had fallen before his slaves and Cobham's bombs? Among them had been men and women of high place. What an aftermath their disappearance would have! The newspapers would be busy for a long time about that. And Satan. In the last analysis, a crooked gambler, betrayed at the end by the dice he himself had clogged. Had he but played his game of the 7-foot prince straight, he would have been unconquerable. But he had not, and all his power had rested on a lie. And his power could be no stronger than that which upheld it. It was Satan's lie that had betrayed him. Crooked gambler, yes, but more, much more than that. Would his vengeance follow us, though he was gone? Well, we would have to take our chances. I shook off the oppression creeping over me, turned resolutely from the past to the future. "Eve," I whispered, "all I've got is what's left of $66.95 that was my sole capital when I met you." "Well, what of it?" asked Eve, and snuggled tighter in my arm. "It's not much for a honeymoon trip," I said. "Of course, there's the $10,000 I got for the museum job. I can't keep that. It'll have to go back to the museum, marked Anonymous Donor." "Of course," said Eve indifferently. "Oh, Jim, darling, isn't it good to be free?" Barker moved forward and took the wheel from me. I put both arms around Eve. Far ahead of us, the lights of some Connecticut town sparkled. They evoked a painful memory. I sighed. All those treasures gone, I groaned. Why didn't I have the sense to snatch that crown or scepter off the gold throne when I had the chance? "There's the crown, Captain," said Barker. He fished down into a pocket. He drew out the crown and dropped it into Eve's lap. Its jewels blazed up at us. We stared at them, and from them to Barker, and from Barker back to them, unbelievingly. "Crown's a bit crumpled," remarked Barker easily. "Had to bend it to stow it away. Grabbed a scepter, but it slipped. Hadn't time to pick it up. Picked up a few other tasty bits, though." He poured a double handful of rings and necklaces and uncut gems over the glittering crown. We stared at him, still speechless. "Split 'em 2 ways," said Harry, "so long as you and Miss Eve's going to be one. I only hopes they're real." "Harry," whispered Eve breathlessly. She leaned over and kissed him. He blinked and turned back to the wheel. "Reminds me of Maggie," muttered Harry forlornly. I felt something round and hard in my pocket. Cobham's bomb. With a little prickling of the scalp, I dropped it gingerly over the side. The shore lights had crept nearer. I scooped the jewels from Eve's lap and thrust them into Barker's pocket. I clasped Eve close and turned her face up to mine. "Just like me and Maggie," whispered Harry, huskily. I put my lips to hers and felt hers cling. Life was very sweet just then. Eve's lips were sweeter. End of chapter 20. The end of 7 Footprints to Satan by A. Merritt.